Good morning. Thank you very much for that really kind introduction, Brigadier Peter, and the invitation to talk today to the Sapper Servicewomen's Network on International Women in Engineering Day. So this year, the theme for International Women in Engineering Day is Shape the World, focusing on stories of how engineers shape the world and make our planet a better, safer, more innovative and exciting place to be. I think that being an engineer means that I am always on the lookout for ways in which we can improve the way in which we do things, starting from finding solutions to complex problems and then ensuring that those solutions are better for the environment around us, and so that our legacy is one of sustainable improvement. In my role as a director for AECOM, I am shaping the world in which we do business and the way in which we build our projects. And in one of my extracurricular roles with the Atrium Studio, I'm also shaping the future of engineering and construction. Our journey should be one that we are proud of and will inspire others to build a better world. So, over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to share with you my journey and how I have helped to shape the world around me, but also how the world around me has helped to shape the person that I am. I've always had a passion for engineering and building things from a really young age. This was probably fostered by my dad, as you can see here, a Royal Engineer with whom I love to spend time with. I grew up on many military establishments around the world, surrounded by other dependent families and grateful for the facilities that those barracks and my extended family there provided. I then attended a girls' boarding school in Kent to stabilise my education, and I excitedly looked forward to the bluey letters I received each week. My dad used to tell me about the projects that he was working on and try to explain the engineering issues he was facing, from obtaining engineering materials in hostile territories to logistics around getting a helicopter lift for a historic cannon to be moved across Gibraltar. I fondly remember the military fun days when I was at home for the holidays, where we would sit in tanks, play in helicopters, build bridges, and the army ethos of be the best was all around me. It filtered into my subconscious as I was desperate to join the Royal Engineers myself and follow in my dad's footsteps. Unfortunately, this dream was crushed when I sustained a back injury during my further education, and I was medically discharged from my university officer training corps. So I had to reassess my future and work out what I wanted to do with my life instead. I'd been accepted to Bristol University to study civil engineering in the late 90s, where the percentage of females on my course was around 13%. This was actually the highest percentage in the engineering faculty. However, it became apparent that I was in a minority, and having grown up surrounded by girls, it was a stark change. But I enjoyed working with others that shared my passions. When I originally asked my careers advisor at school about engineering, this wasn't an academic career that they had any experience of. And so I was left to do my own research. I discovered that my favourite subjects of maths, physics and design technology were all well suited to an engineering profession. With no other further information available, I chose civil engineering as I thought it would allow me to work both inside and out. I loved my degree and discovered a passion for concrete. And then the 4 years for my master's flew past, equipping me with the skills that I needed to become a real engineer. I think that the environment I was in at the time really shaped my thirst for a successful career with no limits because I was a girl. And this included the recent female Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, who had governed for 11 years. And to my school by Helen Sharman, the first British astronaut. And she was the first woman to visit the Mir space station in 1991. And also the Latham Report in 94 and the Egan Report in 98, titled Constructing the Team and Rethinking Construction, respectively, which both looked at a new era for the construction industry, moving to a partnership relationship and away from the more traditional adversarial contracts. The promise for me that as a girl in this changing industry, which aspired to have no barriers, I could have everything that I wanted, both a career and a family. So with a degree under my belt, I decided to try and maintain my desire to be involved in a military engineering environment. And I joined the Defence Engineering Science Group, or DESG, as a graduate on one of their training programmes as a civil servant. I was one of the first civil engineers to be accepted onto the programme, and at the time, Defence Estates was looking to grow their own professional expertise. I spent the next few years gaining experience across the MOD departments in 3-month placements. And this gave me a really great insight into how each of the different MOD departments and agencies operated. And it even included a 6-month tour at Chatham in 2002 with the Royal School of Military Engineering on the Professional Engineering Civils course with fellow Royal Engineers. I enjoyed my time at Chatham, living in and working with the Royal Engineers and learning more about military engineering. Thankfully, the week-long design exercises are now a distant memory. But I did take away further respect for the Corps, and I was honoured to be allowed to use the Garrison Church and the officers' mess at Chatham for my wedding later that year to my husband, a fellow Bristol engineering graduate. So moving on to one of the projects that I worked on as a graduate, which was the new air traffic control tower at the Royal Naval Air Station Yeovilton in Somerset. I was fortunate enough to work with the requirements management team, who understood the need for the new facility, as the existing one was full of asbestos and they had to use CCTV to see the end of one of the runways. I helped to develop the requirement, ensuring that the placement of rooms and offices were maximised for the roles that they were needed to undertake. For example, ensuring that the toilet was located close to the visual control room to minimise time required for a comfort break, and to ensure that there was a full 360-degree vista from the control room to enable eyes on the various flights and operations, including the historic Harrier with its vertical takeoff and landing capability. At the time, there was another air traffic control tower being built at RAF Coningsby, and so I arranged for the design team to visit this facility to see if we could learn any lessons for our project. We learned invaluable advice regarding long lead items for bespoke military training operational kit, and some key insights into keeping the airfield operational during construction. I was then fortunate enough to be seconded to an engineering consultancy to design the foundations for the building. And then I transferred on site as resident engineer for the build. I was so excited to see a building that I had helped to design start to take shape and to help resolve construction issues that were apparent whilst working on a live military airfield. There were a few awkward occasions when, for example, I wore a skirt to the office for a meeting, but then was required to go on site and climb ladders to inspect some work, or trying to find PPE that fitted without looking too comically large on me, and also the time that a Harrier blew down the site Harris fencing whilst it was practicing its dance on Charlie Pad. But on the whole, I enjoyed spending time on site, talking with the trades and understanding how things were really put together. It turned theory into reality. I even convinced the head mason that he could teach me how to lay bricks, and the bricks that I laid are still visible today in the tower, although I'm sure that I was a very slow apprentice. So the Air Traffic Control Tower was a flagship project for the Royal Navy and was completed in 2006. And I have been fortunate enough to have revisited on a number of occasions in my later career when I led a design project for the full refurbishment of the airfield, taxiways and airfield ground lighting for RNAS Yeovilton. Upon meeting each senior air traffic controller for the airfield, I think I've now met 5 of them, I unashamedly asked them about what they thought of the building and if it met their requirement and supported them in the jobs that they do. And each time, the feedback has been positive. And I'm really surprised that this building, 15 years later, is still considered a state-of-the-art facility. And I'm reminded that as engineers, we have the power to shape the world around us for the better. Shortly after the completion of the air traffic control tower, I became a chartered engineer with the Institution of Civil Engineers, working as the youngest civil engineer for the MOD at the time. I then moved myself and my husband to Germany, to the Rheindahlem headquarters as the Divisional Civil Engineer for Europe in a 5-year posting with Defence Estates, who then later became the Defence Infrastructure Organisation. I was responsible for asset management of the existing estate and introducing infrastructure estate management plans, together with condition surveys for some 50,000 assets across Europe. During this time, I also became a mother, and I had 2 children. I hadn't realised the impact that having a family would have on my life and the decisions that I would have to make to maintain a career and a fulfilling home life. I started to slowly discover that to have it all, that sacrifices were needed in order to make it work. I suffered with postnatal depression, and part of that was probably attributed to being away from home in the UK. And the dependent extended family that I had known in my youth wasn't really extended to civil servants. So for me, it was really important that I returned to work following my maternity leave to help with my mental health and to reconnect with others around me. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and I discovered that my line management at the time had other ideas. I was surprised to learn that they felt I should be at home with the kids rather than working. And so for the first time, I truly felt discriminated against because of my sex, and that was shortly after having my first child. I recognised that the environment I was in was not helping my mental recovery, and the outdated expectations were not something that I wanted to be a part of. So in 2011, we moved back to the UK and I took voluntary redundancy from the civil service. I was really disappointed that my dreams of working with and supporting the military seemed to be over. But I also recognised that in order for me to be the best that I could be, I needed to make a change and work with a team who respected me and supported my decision to be a working mother. So we moved to the southwest of England and I signed on for job seekers allowance. I didn't have a network in the UK to reach out to, but I researched the consultancy companies who had worked with the military and I contacted them. I found a company called URS in Plymouth who were willing to give me a chance. I took a significant pay cut and a 0 hours contract and started as a senior project manager. I was an unknown entity, and although I was a chartered engineer, my experience had been client side rather than actually doing the work, and so it was a learning experience for both of us. However, I must have done something right as I quickly progressed, and my project management techniques ensured that I was able to transfer my skills, knowledge and experience for the defence sector into my new role, and I became a permanent part-time member of staff working 3 days a week. In 2016, URS merged with AECOM, and as 2 50,000 strong companies mixed, I was asked to take on the role of merging the project managers, building surveyors, and cost consultants within Plymouth into a coordinated team. Later in 2018, I then undertook the role of Framework Director for our UK contracts with the Defence Infrastructure Organisation. And since then, I've been working to provide a one AECOM approach for our defence clients to ensure consistency in our service, promote best practice, and drive innovation across our contracts. I have a passion for high quality work, and I expect the same from my teams. 4 years ago, I became a design quality indicator facilitator, which means that I can perform deep dives into projects throughout their life cycle and help stakeholders to quantify what is important for them in a project. This technique is really important as it allows a holistic measurement to be taken of a project based upon military standards when using the design excellence evaluation process known as DEEP. And I've seen the benefits of using this process on projects to improve stakeholder engagement and project outputs. It ensures that the projects we work on are faster, smarter, and better. At the same time as joining the consultancy, I also joined a network called the Southwest Women in Construction. And I started to meet other women who worked in the construction industry, from interior decorators to planners and architects, carpenters and electricians. I found the network showed me other projects in the region through CPD, and I also found others who were able to encourage me in my new role. It originally had felt quite alien as an ex-civil servant, where I had to be careful about my online profile, giving only limited information and making connections to putting myself front and centre, making connections which would support both myself and the company in the future. If I'm honest, I still get really nervous about networking events. But over the years, I've worked out some tools and techniques to help me get the best out of these occasions. And it's through these events that I initially became aware of the Atrium Studio. Over the last 7 years, I have had the privilege of being instrumental in the building of a new school in the Southwest, which is specifically for secondary students who would like to follow a career in the built environment. I had observed through the SWIC network and my managing role in Plymouth that it was difficult to recruit qualified staff in the Southwest. And the majority of our existing staff had a local connection to the region. So I decided that to preserve the company's future and our own engineering staff intake, we had to grow our own. As a voluntary member of the Atrium Industry Steering Group, then as a founding governor, I helped to develop a business case for the school, asked the Department of Education for the money, and then built a new school. And now as an occasional lecturer and mentor, I have hugely enjoyed seeing the students develop and grow within a school that is passionate about their future. All areas of the school are aimed at improving the students' knowledge of the built environment sector, from project-based learning to universal beam sizes printed on the steelwork, to fully integrated work experience placements within industry and a state-of-the-art BIM design studio. One of the key things the school does is educate the students on all the different types of career that are available within the built environment. And they made this video to show to others. The school and teaching staff and the students have all won awards, and consistently they have fantastic feedback from industry. I really love sharing the success of Atrium Studio with other construction professionals across the sector, so that similar schools might be built in the future. It's really exciting to see these students designing their own futures and shaping their world. It was partly due to my involvement with the Atrium Studio that prompted my award as the Best Women Consultant in 2018 with the European Women in Construction and Engineering Awards. So as my role within AECOM has grown, and since the award in 2018, I have become more aware of the need to promote women engineers and to demonstrate that this is an awesome career choice. Where else can you engage with the client at the start of a project, develop their imagined solution, and then help to deliver it? I've benefited from the Southwest Women Construction and the Building Plymouth network, where I've met other people who are passionate about the built environment. We've worked together with adult mentoring sessions and STEM events, including the Giant Squid Project, which involved 1,200 primary and secondary school children at the National Marine Aquarium. All of these has helped to build my confidence, but it's also highlighted to me that engineering still isn't a first career choice for many females. And we need to continue to promote this engaging industry to ensure that we obtain the best talent. I strongly believe that in order for us to design the built environment and shape the world, that we need a representative workforce for the environment that we are designing for. Working in the defence sector and as an Armed Forces Covenant Gold supporter, AECOM get additional benefits from employing ex-military personnel as part of our design team. It helps to ensure that we speak the same language as our client, and hopefully they have confidence that we understand their requirement. The same goes for ensuring that we have a diverse workforce so that all clients, not just military, have confidence in us, and to make that diverse workforce work, as a company, inclusion is key, so that the team works together and harnesses the unique attributes that all members contribute with. Diversity isn't just about the underrepresentation of women in engineering, and I will continue to use the opportunities that being an award-winning engineer has given me to promote a diverse workplace to young students, fellow business colleagues and peers, and also to promote the Atrium Studio as a way in which construction and engineering can reignite a passion and diversity with the next generation so that they can design their futures and shape the world. So now I ask all of you, how can you be a role model to the next generation? I didn't set out to be a keynote speaker. I just wanted to do my best and ensure that the projects that I'm involved with are the best that they can be. However, I have learned that in order to support the next generation, we must all take a stand, become advocates for each other, and support everyone around us to be the best that they can be. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Emma. That was really enlightening for a lot of us. And it's prompted a couple of questions. So firstly, we've got one that asks, are there any particular improvements that you think still need to be made to ensure equality of opportunity for women in STEM careers?
I think the first bit is about ensuring that everyone is aware of the career that is available to you. So making sure that we all have those educational resources so that we know that it's even an option. I think still too often in schools, we find that STEM subjects aren't automatically offered to females. And I think that we really need to change that to help us to actually move forwards. I think once you actually get into the industry, the opportunity is all there. And I've very rarely found any stigma for being a woman whilst working in engineering, but it's actually making that first step and actually even knowing that it's a career choice that's available to you is the first step.
Brilliant. And then we've got another one here asking, what are the tools and techniques you've learnt regarding your networking?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's one of the things that I find a bit scary is networking. And I found that the best thing to do is to ensure that you know why you're at a networking event. So make sure that you've got a purpose for being there, not just to go and meet people, but why are you there to meet people? What is it that you need to get out of that event? And I find that by having a purpose at a networking event really helps you to be able to focus the questions that you're asking people and then to find that common ground as you're going forwards.
Brilliant. And then we've got another one here asking if you remember a specific light bulb moment where you found out you wanted to be an engineer, or if it's something that you always wanted to do? And the angle that this person asked from is there more that we can do to engage women in engineering if they don't receive that kind of encouragement from their home life?
Yeah, I was really fortunate that my home life really supported me in wanting to become an engineer. And I don't think my original career choice of wanting to do engineering was about being a civil engineer. It was because I wanted to be a royal engineer, and I wanted to take any step that enabled me to have that type of career. And when that door was closed to me, I then rediscovered actually that civil engineering was really good. And I really enjoyed understanding how civil engineering can be applied to so many different areas. And that then enabled me to my career to move forwards, not necessarily staying within civil engineering, but moving towards project management as well. But no, there wasn't a light bulb moment, I don't think. I think I've always been just really enjoyed building things. I think in that photograph I showed, I was only 3.
And then in moving away from being a specialist, how could a specialist look to branch into leadership roles if they're starting to make that transition?
I think this is a really important thing, and it's about having confidence in your ability and being competent in what you're doing. I think there's this age-old thing that if there is a new job that typically females will need to feel that they can do at least 80% of those things before they will actually take the dive and put themselves forward, whereas more typically men may only need to have done 40% of those things before they feel that they are competent enough to go and do that job. And I think it's really important that we need to recognise that as women, sometimes we are more prone to imposter syndrome, which is what that process is. But I think I really take heart from a comment that someone made to me the other day, actually. I suffer from imposter syndrome myself, quite often going, why am I here? Why does anyone want to listen to what I've got to say? But actually, I was told that as a leader, I would much rather have people with imposter syndrome working with me than rather those people who don't understand the magnitude of the work that needs to be done and therefore go in gung-ho and don't really understand what they need to do.
And then we're also asked who some of your role models were in engineering and how they helped you to get to where you are.
I think this is a really interesting question because I've been thinking about my role models, and there aren't actually very many female role models in my life. I've had, when I was at university, my role model was Brunel, you know, that key civil engineering icon, and the amazing things that he managed to achieve with his career in such a short amount of time, and the depth and breadth that he managed to do that. And then as my career moved forward, I was very fortunate to have some fantastic mentors who also became my role models as they helped my career to shape that forward, and they became real advocates for me. But they were all men. And I think that's a really important thing to note, that role models can be both female and male. But it is really important that we also have more female role models. And recently, I've been really glad that AECOM's chief of Middle East, India and Africa, EMEA, and actually shortly to become the president of AECOM, is Lara Poloni. And she's a really inspirational lady from Australia who's taken AECOM by its hand. And she's definitely a role model that I can now look up to in terms of my company progression as well.
Great. And then we've got 2 questions that I'm just going to put into one for you. And it's regarding schooling. So how can either those in engineering do more to educate teachers and gatekeepers about options open to engineers? And potentially, should we be looking at doing this at an earlier age?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I'm a STEM and construction ambassador as well. And there are so many things that we can do just by volunteering a little bit of our time to go in and speak to schools. So I've spoken at both primary schools and secondary schools, and you actually get the most impact at primary schools when talking about different careers and making children aware that maybe some of those stereotypical role models don't apply. And this applies for, you know, women in the military as much as it occurs for women in engineering. And when you combine military female engineers, it then becomes a much smaller area that you're looking at, doesn't it? So I do think that getting involved, doing STEM activities with schools is really important, and having those discussions. You have to start local with the schools that are known to you, offering a little bit of your time, and then there are so many different networks out there to help you with specific materials that engage as well, and there's a number of them, so WISE, or some more local networks as well. And the Institution of Civil Engineers, for example, has got some fantastic resources that you can look at and use with schools as well.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a slightly specific one here from someone who is seriously qualified as an engineer with a PhD degree in mechanical engineering and doing a postdoc research, and also a mum of 2. And her question is, could you share some advice on making that step into industry, as she seems to be finding it a little bit difficult?
I think it's about stepping from where you're a specialist and then stepping into industry. I think it's also about understanding your limitations and what it is that you want to offer and where you want to go in your career, and being quite firm in that as well. There's been many times that I've had to say no in my current career, and that doesn't actually sit very easily with me. I'm normally a can-do person. But I think when you are trying to balance a career and home life, it can be very difficult, and you do have to make priorities sometimes. And then specifically, it's about finding that area where you can add some value, and where your skills are appreciated. Because I find, you know, wherever you work, it's always about that mutual trust that's needed.
Great, and I think that probably covers some of the information for another specific question that we've had about how, if someone's doing a PhD in civil engineering, what steps could they take in order to not fall behind in terms of career progression? So is that very much a similar answer?
Slightly. I think these days research areas have got, there's much better connection with industry, and so really use that network that you've got whilst doing your PhD, making sure that you have those industry advocates, and that will then help to make that step moving from research into a consultancy. You have to remember that most consultancies are trying to sell people something, and so ensuring that what your PhD, you need to understand the value of that and how you can then help a consultancy to use that so that they can then get more clients and they can then provide a better service to their clients. And it's how you market that, I suppose, market yourself to industry to ensure that you can add value to them.